Let's bring in economic expert Robert Olds to tell us what this means here. Robert Olds, I'm looking at a food charity by the name of Food Share, where they reported a 20% rise in demand. But what's alarming is this was in October of 2011, and now you have this alarming stat coming out. I mean, shouldn't there be alarm bells going off on Downing Street?
Well, there's the continuing situation within the United Kingdom that costs are continuing to rise. The cost of living, inflation is still going up. It's not going up massively, but of course the fact is that wages are not increasing there. So people are effectively becoming poorer and poorer and finding it hard to make ends meet. In London as well, we also have the problem that rents are increasing massively, and so people have less money to spend because they're having to spend more on food and on rent, and people are just effectively becoming poorer. So it is actually an alarming situation. And of course, really at the very heart of the problem is, of course, the lack of economic growth, which means that there is no room to put up wages within the UK. And whilst there is still inflation within the British economic system, then of course costs rise. So that's really the basis of the problem that people are encountering throughout the country.
And of course, this report said, our report said that this is based on a five-fold increase now that has occurred since the coalition government came to power in 2010. I'm looking at the Finance Minister, George Osborne, which gave his budget, and his bright note was when he said we're going to move around $9 billion, cut it from the Ministry of Defense, and then incorporate it into infrastructure. I mean, basically, that's moving just money around, isn't it? I mean, is that the best that George Osborne could come up with in terms of a positive outlook on the economy in the UK?
Well, really what there needs to be done is something that will stimulate economic growth. Moving money around, as you rightly say, it doesn't actually achieve that much. There needs to be activities which generate more economic growth. That can be spending on infrastructure projects. In the 1930s, during the Great Depression, Britain quickly got out of problems through initiating a massive house building program. That's not going underway at the moment, and so of course the economic problems are continuing. Other people also favour the idea of targeting tax cuts, particularly for those on lower incomes, really reducing the amount of tax they pay so they can actually got more money to spend. So that makes their life easier, and of course creates economic growth, because people on lower incomes, if they're then able to spend more money, they will spend that within the local economy, and of course there will be an upsurge in economic activity and economic growth. So really there needs to be pump priming action taken that will stimulate economic growth. That is quite clear now. And of course the IMF have said that George Osborne's austerity policies aren't actually working, that there does need to be more public spending and of course tax cuts which can be financed through more debt. That has worked in other countries such as Sweden, which also has a centre-right government at the moment. They borrowed more to fund tax cuts, and there was economic growth as a result, which would benefit people throughout the nation, particularly the worst off, who are having to pay tax at the moment. So really there does need to be something does need to be done, and George Osborne doesn't have the answers as yet.
Very well. He's got his handful. Thank you very much, Robert Olds, economic expert there from London.